All right, so today I wanted to talk about the go-to-market hiring market. Who's actually hiring, what roles are in demand, and whether AI is replacing go-to-market jobs.
All right, set the table for us. What qualifies as go to market? What traditional departments are we talking about here?
So the jobs included sales, marketing, business development, so like BDR, SDR, customer support, customer success, and solutions engineering. If you're touching a customer, you're included in this data. And the data came from Sumble, which has real-time job post data across 3 million companies. And so we specifically looked at US digital native companies. A subset of those were AI native companies.
These are tech companies. It's not like a paper mill is posting a job and we're picking it up here.
These are all tech companies. And one thing that's a little bit tough with the data is like a lot of companies have a B2B and a B2C motion. Like a Meta has a B2B arm, or an Amazon has a B2B and a B2C arm. We excluded any company that had a sizable B2C motion because it just kind of skewed the go to market data. Like it looked like marketing was everywhere. And so it was really B2B centric companies.
I've interviewed a bunch of CFOs from B2C companies on my podcast, and it's like an interesting conversation because it's not like they're going out to build a quota capacity model. It's more working really closely with marketing to figure out how to deploy like their demand gen budget and other activities that they're doing. So I'm glad it's not heavily focused B2C. It would be kind of weird if it was like, well, who is Strava hiring in the sales team? It's like, well, that's not really telling, I think, of what we're trying to solve here.
The data tracked over 120,000 go-to-market job posts since January 2025, and headcount of 1.4 million people working in B2B digital native go-to-market roles. So not the biggest industry, right, in the world, but like a pretty large number of people, pretty large number of job posts.
I'm also not just the titles, but I'm excited to know what roles are growing or shrinking and what the overall sentiment on the job market is.
Yeah, the spoiler is things are not growing in general, but there are some exceptions.
I thought we were doing a different podcast today.
Hopefully not too much of a surprise. All right, well, let's get into one example because I think the data, it's a little bleak at first glance, but there's some really interesting stuff when you get into it. One example is that SDR job posts are down 21% in Q1 of 2026 compared to Q1 of 2025. But the companies that are supposedly killing the SDR job, AI companies, they're hiring the most SDRs of anyone.
This is hilarious. It's kind of like how people are saying that you can now vibe code your own CRM, but Anthropic is hiring a Salesforce admin.
Exactly. It's so bizarre. SDR headcount at AI native companies in the data set has more than doubled year on year. And as a percentage of go to market teams, AI native companies actually have 50% more SDRs as a percentage of their team compared to all B2B digital native companies. If you want an SDR job, the AI native companies are where you should look. And like, they're definitely not automating away this role. I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, is this data just like tagging companies wrong? Just a really quick search on LinkedIn found SDR hiring at Legora, Cursor, LangChain, Fireworks AI, Decagon, and even OpenAI is hiring SDRs right now.
Are you going to tell me next that Decagon's hiring a bunch of customer support people?
At this point, they probably are. I thought this was really interesting data. I mean, the fact that, yes, it is a really challenging time from an SDR perspective, and yet AI native companies are scaling this role really fast. Like the disconnect was really odd for me and trying to make sense of what's happening here. I think that part of it is that it's just really hard to convince people to buy something without having a relationship with the people that work at the company.
On our last podcast, we talked about the plight of the permanent underclass. I say that in jest, so go back and look at it before you at me. But if you were thinking about the people who are earlier in their career, did this give you more hope for the journey of the SDR to go to become a sales leader? Because sales is a very apprenticeship heavy job. There are other jobs out there that you kind of figure out on your own. You can work from home. It's very hard to learn sales working from home. You need to be in a bullpen. You need to be able to listen to other calls. Did this bode well for like the college graduate looking for the SDR job or no?
Exactly. I think that for these AI native companies, they're much more explicit about this role being an apprentice role to try to get someone in sales for an AI native company. So they want to train you up to eventually be in sales. Now, that was always the pitch in SaaS too. SaaS companies were like, this is your path to work in sales. And then when you looked at it, like the graduation rates from SDR to AE were low.
But you said it was down 21%, except that the company's killing the position. Got it.
AI native companies only represented about 5% of all go to market hiring. And so this is the share of go to market hiring that's AI native is growing really quickly, but it's still actually quite a small number. And to me, I'm like surprised by this, honestly, because yes, I know AI companies are trying to be more efficient and all of that, but they've raised record amounts of money. Like there's so much money going into these AI native companies, and they are just not deploying it on hiring at the same rate that a SaaS company would.
Have you heard of Javon's paradox? Maybe Javon. Have you heard of that?
I've seen it written, but I never knew how to pronounce it.
An economic principle stating that when technological progress makes a resource usage more efficient and cheaper, total consumption of that resource often increases rather than decreases. So it happened with coal, right? We ended up having more coal instead of less. It also happened with x-rays. So actually everybody goes to get an x-ray because it's cheaper to do one. And now we need actually more people to read the x-rays. So I'm wondering how much of this paradox applies to some of these hiring trends. Maybe an SDR isn't necessarily cheaper, but they can be so much more efficient in terms of their outreach that it makes a lot more sense, and therefore you have more demand to get someone to build pipeline.
There might be something to that. I think that there's a lot more interest in automated SDR campaigns. So a lot of companies are running an automated SDR program, but they still want someone for the high value accounts and they have a way better data on who the high value accounts are and then what are signals that these accounts might be in market or thinking about buying. For a lot of these AI companies, they also have a B2C motion, like a self-serve tier, free tier, but they also have an enterprise motion. And so they have a lot better data around who the B2C users are that they could sell top down to over time. And so I think that for these companies, it is fairly efficient to spin up a human-led SDR motion to essentially turbocharge what they're already doing in an automated way.
All right, so here's a better example. So LED lighting. Replacing older bulbs with highly efficient LEDs drastically drops the cost of lighting. Because it is so cheap, cities light more public spaces and businesses keep their lights on longer, sometimes increasing total energy usage. So does it make sense to have more SDRs if they can be more focused and more productive? I think that's what I was trying to get at.
I mean, SDRs are a motion that you scale if the ROI is there, right? Like if the CAC payback or the cost per qualified lead justifies it, like you kind of want to scale up that role as much as you can afford it. Anything you can do to make that role more efficient or more effective, it will result in more hiring for that position. There could be some of that within AI companies. I think also just in general, like the AI native companies have very high growth rate expectations. They're generally like a lot of them started self-serve or SMB. They're moving up market. They're realizing they need to change the tactics. Like what works up market is not what worked in a consumer capacity. So they're now looking a lot more like traditional B2B SaaS companies.
Ali and the team at Tabs are building something that directly addresses one of the biggest headaches I see finance teams deal with today. Pulling data from your ERP, your CRM, your FP&A tools, and your usage systems and actually making it all work together. If you're running usage-based pricing or complex contracts, you already know how this usually plays out. Contracts live in one system, usage data lives somewhere else, billing happens in another tool. RevRec gets layered on top at month end, and finance ends up just reconciling everything by hand to close the books. This is exactly the problem Tabs was built to solve. Tabs is an AI-native revenue platform built for controllers and CFOs. It brings together data from your ERP, CRM, and real product usage into a single system of record. From there, it automates billing, collections, and revenue recognition without finance having to duct tape workflows together every month. If usage-based revenue is core to your business, this is the future of how billing and RevRec get done. Go check them out at tabs.com/run. That's tabs.com/run.